PIElink's lunchtime forums are on the whole pretty informal affairs. They're more like discussions between friends than any kind of more formal teaching. On occasions, we will have a specific speaker and possibly an interview or a presentation. But on the whole, they tend to be just an open, free discussion between people with an interest in the subject. And the only criterion for joining is to have an interest in the subject. We do have sometimes people who don't really have a lot to say themselves. They just want to sit in and hear from other people and absorb a little bit. And that's absolutely fine. We'll obviously try and encourage everybody to say a little bit about what their interest is and whether or not they're getting what they're looking for out of the discussions. But on the whole, you can just sit in and we will just talk around a subject. To get to the forums, to try and keep it as simple as possible, as kind of non-accident prone, we're now giving out the Zoom room ID, which means that anybody can just go to that room. If you go to Zoom and then type that room in at the time when the meeting and the discussion is on, that will take you through to the room and we will let you in. On the other hand, it's always a lot better if you let us know if you're interested in a particular subject. So if you mail to forums@PIElink.net and just say that you're interested in a particular conversation, on the one hand, then we know who you are, but also sometimes that can spark a bit of a discussion before the forum even begins, where we can point you towards some stuff. And sometimes we'll have a little bit of background information on a subject. There's quite a lot on the PIElink on the pages related to each particular forum, but sometimes there's more stuff that comes up, or there's stuff that's particularly in your own particular area of interest that may be worth reading. So that's probably about it for the moment. Now, most of the conversations are, as I say, quite informal, and to encourage people to speak fairly freely. For most of the conversations, although they are recorded, the recording is only for people who've been at the conversation, people who've been involved in the discussion. Every now and again, there's something said that was so sufficiently good that we'll edit out a little snippet of a conversation and use it in one of the other areas, part of other briefings and so on. But on the whole, to encourage people to speak freely, we do say, Chatham House rules, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, that kind of thing. The exception are when we have interviews or topics that are not particularly prone to people talking about their own particular service, their own particular area, and so on. And there, we would like the possibility sometimes of producing, if need be, an edited version that we then can use. Some of the subjects, like the research program, the interviews with Joy McKeith and with Jay Levy that are coming up in season 3, we may well want to actually edit out parts of that and use them as part of other publicity or learning some of the resources we have in the library area. But on the whole, we will never use the image of someone or something they've said without their explicit consent. And we can edit out quite easily bits if people are a little uncomfortable. It takes a bit of time, but we can actually quite easily do it. So the point is to encourage people to speak freely, but also to have resources that we can then share with other people when it seems helpful and suitable. So that for the moment is it. Now the Zoom room ID that you will need is 454 524 5839. That's 454 524 5839. If you simply type that into Zoom, it will take you to the room and then we let you in on the assumption that anybody who's coming here is probably going to be worth it. But of course, we can refuse people and we can chuck people out of a room if there's any reason to. The room is in the name of Roger Wennack, which is a bit of an in-joke, which we can probably explain another time. So if you get a message saying you're in Roger Winnack's room, or you've come to Roger Winnack's room, or whatever, don't worry, that is the PIElink Community Forum. Roger Winnack is a nom de plume, an ID that I use for various different purposes, which we can explain another time. I think that's probably the main things to mention now. We do try to have some open discussions in each season. In the season 3, we're calling them "Where Are We Now?" because there's been so much change in the sector the last little while, and so much development of the PIE's approach and PIE's thinking, and sort of sense of potential over and above what's happening within specific services. Obviously, we're very interested in promoting specific services, and we're having more and more discussions with Scotland, Wales, Southern Ireland, even Australia, and so on. So there are more locality focused discussions going on as well. One of the big themes is around research and the issue of the PIElink, the PIEabacus software that we may be able to use to move towards more system change level approach. That being one of the big themes at the moment. The only other thing to mention is that we have a jointly hosted webinar with Housing First England later in October to pursue further the suggestion that Housing First and PIE, rather than seen as two different things going in different divergent directions, are really, they have an awful lot of overlap in common. In fact, one of the suggestions is that we can see Housing First as a working example of a psychologically informed environment approach. And if so, can we use the PIE's framework, and maybe even the PIElink and the abacus, to try and tease out more about what it is that actually works? Adherence to the strict principles of Housing First, yes, but beyond that, then what you're going to do. And we have similar issues around therapeutic communities, trauma-informed care, a whole string of issues where the PIE's framework seems to allow us to get beyond the headline items and get into more discussion about the varieties of practice and what works in one situation and what works in another. And that's really part of the research program that hopefully we may yet see. So that, in short, is where we're at the moment. Season 4 in 2022, we'll see. It will depend on what's coming up at the time and what comes out of these discussions. So hopefully we will see you then.